What is going on, guys? Hey, I wanted to come back to you and bring you some JLP. And right now, Jesse is talking to Rollo Tomassi. And Rollo Tomassi, if you guys don't know who that is, he wrote the book, The Rational Male. And The Rational Male came out, I think, around 2013 time frame. But it's a pretty good book, man, if you haven't read it yet. But anyways, guys, if you would, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.
Better. Rollo, what is a man?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. Like I was saying, I think a man, today, what is a man is a whole lot different than what a man was before. And so I have to sort of go back to the old social contract to really to give you my definition of a man. I think a man is somebody who is a male person. We have to clarify that today.
That's right.
Is a male person that that takes care of a family, takes care of himself, puts himself as his own mental point of origin, but also I think that an aspect of what I call enlightened self-interest really makes a man. What I mean by that is I cannot help anybody until I can help myself first.
Right.
And it's like when they tell you, when you're in an airplane, they say, put on the oxygen mask first, and then put the mask on your kid or whoever else is sitting next to you. That's really that's a larger principle where it's like, I have to be able to take care of me. I have to be able to take care of myself before I can be effective in, raising a family, having a wife, doing all of these things that, there are certain, classical aspects of masculinity that we don't even really think about today, but I think that those classical aspects are what really, I think, contribute to manhood and then as they do today.
Are you a
Man, I gotta totally agree with this. One thing I think men were taught in a way that to appease the women in our lives, happy wife, happy life, that we need to put her first. She comes first. And her dreams, her hopes, what she wants to become, that goes first. And no, it doesn't, man. You put yourself first. Because again, for number one, man, you're going to wind up resenting her if you don't. I'm just saying, man, you're going to wind up resenting her because, it's only natural, I think, for people to put themselves first. We are motivated by self-interest. So put yourself first, man. Guys, put yourself first, number one. And number two, man, understand that the woman you marry is not the woman that you're going to separate and divorce from. They're two totally different people. And what she agrees to during the course of the marriage and what she says, the way she behaves when things are good is not going to be the way she behaves when things are bad. It doesn't work that way. And, that's one thing I have to, by personal experience, I got to say. And number two, if something happens to your marriage, you don't need to abide by something that you agreed to before the marriage went south. What I'm saying is a lot of times women will try to hold you to account for things that you promised or said or agreed to when the marriage was good. And now that the marriage has gone away or going away, she's mad at you because you're not abiding by what you said when things were good. And the fact of the matter is, man, nobody does. So, but I think a lot of men, trying to, live up to their word, do the right thing, put the woman first, make her happy, appease her. They continue to do that even when things are falling apart. Even when you're separated or divorced, they're still doing that. And again, man, that's one thing that we've got to understand, that we got to put ourselves first. We got to put ourselves first in life, and if we don't, we're not going to be able to help other people. We're not going to be able to help our wives and our families, and we're not going to be able to do so. So we got to put ourselves first. And I understand that might piss a few people off in the beginning. I get it. And if it does, fine. And if people leave you because of that, that's fine too. You don't need them around you. One thing I told my oldest son, and it's something I got to remember for myself too, that if a woman leaves you because you are pursuing something for yourself to make yourself better, you don't want her anyways. So I think that goes with your wives too. If she does not want to be with you when you are pursuing what you're pursuing, you don't need her anyways. You don't want her in your life anyways. So you're kind of going through a weeding out process. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up.
Christian?
Yes, I am.
And are you married?
Yes, I am. 21 years.
Really? You have children?
Yes, I do. I have a 19-year-old daughter.
Amazing. We were looking at you during the break, and we thought we saw a ring on your finger.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to put a ring on it. So let me ask, are you the head of your wife?
Yes, most definitely. And that's the way it has always been. And I will tell you, that's an interesting story, too, because when I was dating, and I was what I call spinning plates and dating non-exclusively, and I came across my wife, all of the women that I had been involved with up until I met my wife were very much what I call egalitarian equalists in their mindset. Yeah. And so it was always... we're all going to play equal, and really what that means is that they don't trust you, and they won't trust you with their lives. And when I met my wife, and this is an interesting story I always tell, is we were driving in her car, and she handed me the keys to her car, and she expected me to drive the car for her.
Yes, sir.
And I had never in my lifetime had a woman hand me the car. If it was her car where she was driving, if it was my car, I was driving. But this is the first time she ever handed me a woman had ever handed me the keys and said, you are driving. She expected me to be that, dominant, confident, masculine man. Yeah. And I grabbed the keys. I said, let's go.
All women want that. And because if they don't get that, they hate the man for being weak. They hate him for being less than that. And also, there is nothing more disgusting and worse than a man sitting in the passenger seat and the woman is driving. Unless they're going on a long road trip or there's an emergency. And I see more and more men sitting on the passenger seat while the woman is driving, and the men look weak and pathetic, and the woman look like she's playing man, trying to be masculine, and neither works. But there's nothing more disgusting than that.
Well, and that's kind of an illustration of a larger principle.
Yeah, that's one thing, man. I wanted to get get the ladies to comment below, because that's something, man. I grew up with my father driving everywhere. Of course, my mother drove, but when we were together as a family, my father drove. And, so that's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to see what people think about that, because, yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, I look at that the same way, like, and I don't know, like, is that something that, how do people feel about that now? I know, like I said, back, 40 years ago, whatever, when I was a kid, I remember my dad driving everywhere, but yeah, I wanted to give what other people thought.
Whereas, women naturally seek competency in men.
Yeah.
They want a competent man. They want a man who's a jack of all trades, a guy who's going to be able to change a tire and go out there and take the trash out and not have to rely on other men to do what we would call, traditionally male gender, ideas and activities and behaviors. They want a man who, what I call, just gets it.
Yes.
They want a man. If masculinity has to be, explained to a man by a woman, that man is not the man for her.
Yes.
Because he does not get it organically. He does not understand. When I always talk to guys all the time, they're saying, "What do women want? What do women want?" I say, well, if you're asking women that question, you're not going to get that woman.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're basically admitting your own incompetency when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Amen. I want you to challenge me on what I know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to challenge me on this. Mm-hmm. I've come to realize that not all, but most mothers set their boys up to become feminine and weak and light and subject to women. And that most mothers be impatient with the boys. She imposes her will upon them, boys and girls. And the fathers are too weak to stand between the mother and prevent her from doing that because he has already been destroyed by his mother. So what happens is when mothers impose their wills upon their sons and daughters, the kids start to become angry at that. And once you become angry at the mother, you become like what you hate. And so now you lose your identity. You take on the image of your mother. And so you grow up feeling and thinking and acting like a woman. And even when you say it to yourself, I don't want to be this way, you can't help it. And so you end up dating and or marrying women who are just like the mother because you're attracted to what you hate. You have a love-hate relationship. And it's not until you forgive your mothers that you're going to be able to overcome that spirit when God will take it away from you. And a lot of men don't know that. So when they go out into the world, you have men hating women who build on that anger that is already there. And it won't change until they forgive their mother so that God can forgive them and take her identity away and replace his identity, which the kids are born with. What do you say?
I was going to say there's not a lot I disagree with about that. I would definitely say that right now, for the past 4 to 5 generations, we have put women and mothers into a position of dominance within the family.
Yes.
We are, when we talk about a weak masculine influence in a family, maybe a kid grows up with a father, but that father is very much what we call beta male.
Yes.
And he is very, very submissive. And I think that in any relationship, you are always going to find a dominant and a submissive personality within that relationship. And conventionally, that should be the male, that should be the man. And even if we were going to, take this out of a religious context, it should still be the male, because that is the strength and the confidence and the dominance that the woman is, like I said, is seeking competency within that man. But today we have. We want to play equal. We want to pretend that we have egalitarian sex roles within marriages, and it's just simply not the truth.
Nope.
Because whenever we say we're going to play equal, the woman always has a leverage over the man, and that leverage is sex. And so when we're trying to play equal, that guy always in the back of his head is saying, if I don't agree, if I don't do this, I'm not going to get it later on.
Yeah.
And so you've got that. When what that does is eventually that forces a woman into a position of authority in.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And I definitely agree with that to a degree too, that a lot of times guys, they concede stuff to, what was it, Rich Cooper, who's friends with Rollo. He wrote the book, Rollo wrote the book, The Irrational Male, and Rich Cooper wrote the book, The Alpha Male, I believe is what it is. I've read both of them, but so Rich Cooper said that men end up becoming betas by way of 1,000 concessions. And I definitely agree with that. You know, it's like we tend to agree to something, so we don't get her upset, so we get laid that night or laid that week or whatever. And you know, the fact is, man, that I'm realizing the older I get, and I think a lot of guys have realized, man, it's not even worth it. It's really not worth it to give over your power, to concede to something that you know to be wrong, or concede something that you don't want to do in order to get laid. and I think the older guys get, the more that we realize, you know, it's I'm just not going to do that. It's just for a little while of fun in the bedroom, you know, I'm going to concede to something that's going to chip away at my independence and at my power. No, I'm not going to do it. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think.
In a marriage and in the family, and she ends up becoming the dominant character within that. And I should also mention that even in homosexual relationships, there is a dominant and a sub. And so I think to say that we could ever be equal or egalitarian is really kind of a pipe dream, really.
Yeah.
Now, what you were just saying is, yes, I believe that that boys in particular, if they've got a very strong dominant mother who is, you know, a feminist or is very, let's say, feminine empowered, and we're always talking about, you know, empowering girls and empowering women, when that's the narrative and that a boy is seeing throughout his life, he wants to become like that. He wants to become that girl, because it seems to him, when we're teaching kids that that being a boy is worse than being a girl, and that being a girl is correct, and learning like a girl is correct, and acting and emoting like a girl is correct. Well, what is that boy going to learn? He's going to look to his mother and see her as the authority and her as the dominant one, and he's going to want to become more like that. So what boys, you know, young men, particularly teenage boys, learn, you know, back in the day, and then when they get to become, you know, in their 20s, they carry that over to where they feel that if they identify more with the feminine, if they identify and they can sort of cater their personality to, like I always say, to put the feminine on that pedestal and to make that their mental point of origin. And what I mean by mental point of origin is when circumstances arise in a man's life, he doesn't think about himself first. He thinks about, how is it going to affect my mother? How is it going to affect my girlfriend? How is it going to affect my wife? And so he takes that focus, that immediate reflexive focus that he's had to internalize his entire life from what he's learned in his feminine education, and he applies that constantly to you know, he defers authority then not from his mother. He takes that, and he, you know, they always say that you in the Bible it says, you know, we leave our mother and father and we cleave to our husband and wife. Well, what he does is he takes that dynamic and pushes that over into that relationship. So now instead of deferring to mommy, he defers to the wife.
Amazing.
And now that wife becomes the authority.
Yeah, you know, I totally agree with that, man. And that's what I was saying earlier. It was, yeah, we tend to put the women first. Our wives, our girlfriends, our mothers, we tend to put them first, and we kind of forget about ourselves in the process. And, you know, number one, man, we're going to resent these people. We're going to wind up resenting them. And number two, we're never going to get what we want. Only one person can go after what they want. You. That's it. Only one person. There's only one person you can rely on to do things for you, to step up for you, and that is you. But yeah, you know, we're always trying to please mommy in a way, so we end up trying to please other women in our lives, and as we get older, and But yeah, that's one thing, man. But I agree 100% with what both these two were saying, because yeah.
Authority in that relationship. And so,
So
yeah,
sad.
I don't have anything to disagree with you. I just think that probably from a more psychological standpoint, what you're saying is correct. It follows.
Give me a quick yes or no, because we ran out of time, and it's unfortunate, but we ran out of time. I want to get to the phones. If it wasn't for sex, would men have anything to do with women?
Today, I think that answer would be no.
You son of a.